today for Yestalgia, we're doing something a little bit different.
In honor of the spooky season,
Our first special Halloween episode, Little Shop of Horrors.
For a long time, I thought Off Broadway was a joke.
It kind of is.
Audrey too. After me.
A lot of her stuff is affectation, right?
Off-Broadway brings to my mind off-brand.
It's like the Greek chorus is a 60s girl group.
So are they still the chorus?
My new headcanon, they are the goddesses of Skid Row. If you put the plant in the window, maybe people will come and check it out. Ding, ding, ding.
Look at that interesting plant. Welcome to Yestalgia. I'm Basil.
Drew.
And I'm Amanda.
And today for Yestalgia, we're doing something a little bit different.
So normally what we do is we try to choose a movie that at least one of us has not seen. But in honor of the spooky season, we have just decided to say, screw it. We've all seen these movies. These are some great Halloween classics that we've got lined up. So we've sort of tweaked our format just a little bit for Halloween. Mm-hmm. Did you like that?
I loved it. We just chose, ones we felt like choosing. Each of us got a choice.
Also, I have a new cat since the last time we recorded, so I apologize. Drew, don't even try to edit her out. She's part of the Halloween spirit.
Okay. So, starting with our first special Halloween episode, we are doing Little Shop of Horrors. I can give y'all a quick summary.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we do summaries here. Seymour Krelborn is a meek and hapless worker at a flower shop in Skid Row, along with coworker Audrey and owner Mr. Mushnick. During a total eclipse of the sun, he discovers an unusual plant and names it Audrey 2. Audrey 2's unusual appearance brings fame and fortune to the failing flower shop, but it turns out Audrey 2 has some unusual appetites.
We've all seen this, right? And I mean, by we all,
Yes.
like the world, right?
Maybe.
I'm sure there are people who haven't, but in this case, we have all. The people recording this podcast have all seen Little Shop of Horrors.
Yeah.
Do we want to still sort of talk about our experience with it?
Oh, yeah. You may go first?
You? Yeah, go first.
Movie came out in 86, and I want to say I saw it, not long after its release point. Well, no, I was probably like 8, and it was one of those movies kind of like The Labyrinth, which I know we have not talked about yet, but it was presented to me in the same way. It was like, my mom was like, got this movie that's going to blow your mind. We're going to pop some popcorn and we're going to have a very rare family movie night. And yeah, it was great. I've seen it 1,000 times. Very cherished.
Cool.
That's it for me.
Drew, do you want to go?
I'm pretty sure I have the least experience with this movie. I've only seen it once or twice before. First time wasn't until about 4 years ago. So, yeah. I think it's a pretty good movie. I mean, maybe. Who knows?
We'll discuss it.
No.
Right.
No, it's good. Short answer, Drew. It's good.
Okay, girl. I don't have a very good memory of when I first saw this because I've seen it so many fucking times. Every single time I can see it, I will see it. Like, it was on HBO Max for a while, and I watched it like 4 times when it was on there, and then listened to the soundtrack every time I went to take a shower and sang my heart out. So this was my favorite musical, I would say, until Hadestown came around. So now it's been bumped down to number 2. But yeah, I fucking love this movie. It's my favorite movie. I've never seen it. Well, I've seen a video now of it as the play version, but yeah, I've never seen it in person as the play. So yeah.
We were talking a little bit earlier tonight how this is an off-Broadway musical. At least it started that way. And there was a 60s version of it, apparently.
Yeah, I just found that out when I watched the movie too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never clocked that. I was telling Basil I watched the first 45 seconds of it by accident, trying to watch the movie that I was intending to watch, which I kind of do want to go back and watch that old one. It looked really good.
It is different. I will say that. So I had mentioned again to Amanda before Drew had come on that I had watched a big old retrospective of Howard Ashman's career, who was one of the creators of Little Shop of Horrors, the musical. And I guess the original is this sort of schlocky B movie. It is still a horror comedy, but it is not a musical, so there's no music in it at all.
Ooh.
I mean, there's a score, but it is not a musical. And Howard Ashman had first seen the film late night when he was like, I don't know, 13 or 14, I believe they said, and wanted to do it. And he was choosing between Little Shop of Horrors and making a musical and developing a musical off of that, or one about Babe Ruth. And his career had been kind of rocky up until that point. So technically it made more sense for him to do the one that would probably be more, well recognized about Babe Ruth. But he really, really wanted to do Little Shop of Horrors. And yeah, it was very successful.
His Yestalgia.
Yeah. Just quick thing for anybody who doesn't know. Off-Broadway does still mean productions in New York. It has to do with the theater size, whether your theater is considered Broadway or off-Broadway, and then off-Broadway is pretty much anything else. So yeah, just in terms of the way things are categorized.
I noticed in the credits, it does tell you it's an off-Broadway.
Yeah. So,
or at least it was. I do not know or understand what those words mean or how they work until now.
Yeah. So off-Broadway is like any professional theater venue in New York City. Off-Broadway is between 100 and 499 people for capacity.
Oh, that's all it is a capacity?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
All right.
And then Broadway is, again, professional theater in New York above 500.
Because I'm sorry, not to veer completely off topic, but it kind of seems like to call something Broadway is to be like, this is a bad bitch right here. This is like a 10 right here. And then to call something off Broadway brings to my mind off brand. Like, this is the Kmart version of Broadway. And then to say off Broadway, you're like, oh girl, you got this at the flea market.
So I think it is an interesting thing to think about because a lot of it has to do with the sort of commercialism of theater, right? So theaters need money and they need producers, right? And so Broadway is the kind of productions where they're squeezing the most money they can. But on top of that, and part of what Little Shop of Horrors was trying to do and why Howard and Alan did not really want it to be on Broadway is because it is less accessible, right? Broadway is not very accessible. It is very expensive to go see. The productions are like usually bigger, especially around this time. We're like very, very big. Like they were Andrew Lloyd Webber. We've talked a little bit about Andrew Lloyd Webber previously.
Bougie.
Where, in Phantom of the Opera, there is a giant chandelier that swings over the audience. You know what I mean? These are big and, yeah, on one hand, impressive, but not necessary, technically, in terms of storytelling.
Over the top, rich bullshit. Okay, I'm understanding now.
Yeah. And then off-Broadway is going to be a theater. And the big thing about the capacity is that the larger capacity you have, the more money you can recoup, right, for each ticket price. And then off-Broadway, because you cannot fit more than 500 people in the venue, you can't make as much money. I mean, you could, and that was sort of a sticking point with some people at one point during the off-Broadway showings of Little Shop of Horrors. And then off-Broadway is the kind of more experimental theater, right? Like, it's the crusty punk of theater. Like
the community theater Shrek type shit.
Yes and no. Some of it's just like avant-garde or experimental or unusual or just like something that people would not take a chance on, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
If you've ever seen Tick, Tick, Boom, there is a show that Jonathan Larson, the writer of Rent in Tick, Tick, Boom, which was a different play that Jonathan Larson did, was able to successfully get produced. He is working on a very weird, unusual kind of experimental thing throughout the film version. And honestly, it looks fucking amazing. And I wish that it had been produced at all, but it would be the kind of thing I think that would be like off Broadway, if that makes sense, because it was so like experimental and kind of weird in terms of concept, which is why it didn't get produced. Let's be honest.
The more you know.
Yeah.
You know, for a long time, I thought off Broadway was a joke.
It sounds bad, right?
It kind of is.
Sounds bad. Girl, I am like off Broadway.
Yeah, exactly.
I will say it sort of is a joke. I do think that it is a tongue-in-cheek kind of thing when people do say off Broadway. But it's like very small theaters. And then anything beyond that would be anything outside of New York, really, because plays don't get developed outside of New York, which shouldn't be true, but it is.
Let's dive into this movie because, boy, she's a beaut. 1986, we have Rick Moranis just looking precocious as fuck. Like, he's so young. He's so lovely in this movie. He is just very cute.
That's where I got my crush on Rick Moranis.
He looks so fresh-faced in this movie. And then we have Audrey. Someone please.
Ellen Green.
Thank you. I know if nobody got me, y'all got me. She also very, very, very cute. Very special. Her voice is fucking amazing. The thing that she's doing with her voice, that entire movie, when he brings out the plant and says, I named it Audrey too. And she's like, after me? And he's like, yeah. And she goes, like, I'm sure the microphone didn't even pick up the sound that I just made, but
A little squeak.
she's so cute. And the thing that is happening to her is horrible.
Yeah. Interestingly, she was actually the OG Audrey, like, in the play.
For real?
And they fought really hard to get her, to be Audrey.
Oh, she was a callback.
And so all the affectations that she does were very likely, I would have to look this up, but likely, hers. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, originated with her.
I mean, that's a talent. That shit she's doing with her voice. And then when she sings, that little tiny voice with her squeezed up larynx, this bitch is singing with her soul when she has to.
A lot of her stuff is affectation, right? And when she sings, some of her singing stays in the affectation, but others you can kind of more feel what her real voice is like.
You can feel she has a big voice. A lot of great voices in this movie. We've got Tachina Arnold.
Yeah.
And Tisha Campbell.
Yep. Both from Martin.
I don't know Michelle Weeks, but yeah, they were both in Martin. I mostly remember Tachina Arnold from Everybody Hates Chris, though.
Yeah.
Because I used to love that show.
When I think of this movie, when someone says Little Shop of Horrors, I think of the plant. But I can't even call it the second thing. Like, the 1.5th thing that I think about is these 3 chorus girls. And they do have names. I just didn't write them down because I did not take any notes this time around.
They are named after 60s girl groups, like Motown-y girl groups, which are the Chiffons, the Crystals, and Ronettes. So, they have all 60s girl group names. Yeah.
Wow. Them singing in the rain and not getting wet is just such a wonderful memory for me from this movie. They have a purpose.
They're what's called a Greek chorus. We've talked about Greek choruses, I believe, before. And then they have the 3 members. It's like the Greek chorus is a 60s girl group. And I also think what's really cool that they do, because it's a film and they can do lots of changes in terms of costume, is that they can switch between this sort of them being the Greek chorus specifically, because they're also technically characters in the show.
Right.
They go in and out of the story.
Yeah, but they're switching their costumes between what they really look like, right? And then the kind of outside of reality girl group thing. And so they'll have these glamorous costumes at points, and then they'll just have like regular clothes at others. And I love it. I think it's perfect.
At one point, they were playing kids, like loitering kids. And the shopkeeper the flower shopkeeper was like, hey, get out of here, you damn kids. And, they mouthed off to him, and it was great. It was like, they're the Greek chorus, but now they're being these little shitty kids. And
so are they still the chorus in that part? And they know the whole thing is a play or movie and they're acting their parts? Or are they actually being the characters?
Drew.
Yeah, this kind of comes back to the diegetic question in a lot of things, right? In a lot of musicals. My interpretation is that when they are the Greek chorus, they're not really characters in the show. And that's why they look different, right? Like they have normal clothes when they are being a character in the show that needs to move things forward.
It almost feels like to me like they are otherworldly beings that, and I'm not meaning this literally, this is just like a vibe. Mm-hmm. They give off the vibe of like these otherworldly sirens that are every now and then choosing to participate in mortal affairs, such as getting shouted off of a bench in front of a flower shop.
That's what I'm saying.
It becomes up to interpretation at that point. I don't think there's a right answer. I know not to bring it back to the play, but I'm going to keep bringing it back to the play because it is actually very close to the play with some major exceptions, which we could talk about later. I know one of the goals was to have a fairly small cast, like not wanting more than 8 people, you know what I mean? Like as the cast. So I think that's part of why they're playing both parts. Because that happens a lot in theater. And like, that's the thing. When you make the movie, you don't have to keep with that, right? Like they didn't have to, but I do think it's effective. I think it is really interesting and it is a good choice to keep it. But yeah, a lot of times in theater, you know, people are playing more than one role in a way.
I think too, it's intentional. Like you are supposed to believe that these are the same set of girls. I don't know. That was the whole thing for me, was I felt like it was their choice to sort of participate in the narrative.
It's particularly interesting in the song Skid Row, I would say, because they talk as if from experience, right? Of experiencing being kind of downtrodden and capitalism fucking you. But like theoretically, if they were otherworldly, they would not have experienced that, right? And in the time they're singing that song, they are in their kind of glamorous girl group outfits. So
I'm sorry, my new headcanon, they are the goddesses of Skid Row. Yeah, that's how I'm going to see them. I think that's how I've always seen them.
Yeah. Oh, I also loved their pointy boob bows at the very beginning.
Yeah.
They had these bows on their boobs that came up to these little points. They were very cute. They have the best outfits.
Oh, damn it. It's a good movie. Let's talk about Tui as wanting to call the character Rick Moranis, but that is not his name. It's Seymour. Calls her at one point, I'm sorry, but when it's a little like Bud, I would have gotten my white face bitten the fuck off because I would have been like, oh, you're so cute. I would have been like, it wants me to kiss it. It's so precious. Everything in this movie is so visually, even when it's not visually appealing, it's visually
well done.
Yes. Not to bounce all over the place, but when Steve Martin is doing his whole dentist shtick, which I do want to get into, him having that gas mask on is very visually effective. You're like, oh, God. But yes, I loved the little baby Rosebud Audrey too.
Yeah.
Super cute.
And that's very likely on purpose.
Dumbasses like me would be like, oh, you don't.
Here you go. Here's all the blood you need. Yeah.
Right, yeah. Drink my face blood.
I mean, I've heard it's a thing like psychologically with like babies and kittens and like puppies and stuff like baby animals, basically. They are cute or they've developed into being cute so that you take care of them. So like your human brain will take care of them. Right?
My daughter operates.
When a child realizes it, oh boy, that they're cute. Honestly, when a cat realizes they're cute, fuck, you're fucked.
When a plant realizes it, ooh.
When an alien plant.
Yeah, when this alien plant realizes it.
Yeah.
The whole, and I always forget this part. I always just think that Audrey 2 just exists in the world, and this is the movie about her. But the movie does make sure to tell you a few times there was this day where there was a total eclipse of the sun, and it was not expected. It was weird.
There was this total eclipse of the sun.
A total eclipse of the sun. And Audrey 2 just kind of
showed up.
Appeared at the other, what is it?
It was like a plant shop that was run by like a Chinese plant shop, basically. Yeah. Probably technically a competitor, I suppose.
Right.
He would go to the Chinese guy's plant shop. And this was kind of the one part of the movie where it's outdated. It's not hateful in any way. Not intentionally.
Yeah.
But it is, you're like, oh, this is the racist part of the movie. But it's like,
I mean, I think it's sort of like got two sides, right? Well, because New York, which I believe is where Skid Row is supposed to be, is actually a very diverse place. And I'm going to be honest, there are later points where it is subtle. I'm going to admit it is kind of subtler, but there is a bit of commentary in some way on white privilege at some point, which we can talk about a little later, I suppose. But because your main characters, the characters the show is about, are white people. It is centered on white people.
Our little white cuties.
But the other cast is a little more diverse, right? So on the one hand, it's like, yeah, this is reflective of New York in particular. And on the other hand, it's like, but particularly the Chinese shop owner is not done in a sensitive way. You know,
I'm just going to do a Disney comparison because there have been some awful fucking Disney portrayals of Asian people. Yes, they did use the Chinese shopkeeper as sort of like the mystical guy.
Mm-hmm.
Trope.
Right.
Yeah.
But they left it at that. He was just, I don't think he had any lines. I don't remember.
No.
He was just sort of, here I am. I'm the Chinese shopkeeper guy. You know, here's your trimmings and here's your weird alien plant. I'll give it to you for $1.95. And they laid it to rest. It could have been worse, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't know enough about China culturally, but the Greek chorus are also wearing cheongsams, I believe is how you say it.
Right.
And I don't know. Like I said, I don't know how appropriate that is necessarily. I mean, this is like a scene. And like we said, there's not any dialogue. It's not a big part of the film.
No, it's maybe like 30 seconds.
Yeah, of a scene, right?
Pretty much immediately after that, we get Seymour going with his cute little baby plant on the radio.
And who do we see?
John Candy.
Mr. John Candy.
Mm-hmm.
And he is being hyper as fuck. How John Candy is acting in that radio studio is how I feel when we're playing D&D. I'm like, what happens if I stick my face up to the microphone real crazy? I'm sorry, he was so hilarious. Seymour starts to get noticed. Seymour starts to get media attention. He's getting all these people in the shop. There was one guy who I thought was amazing that was just like, hey, I saw your interesting plant in the window. And
Right.
Only moments before, Audrey had been like, if you put the plant in the window, maybe people will come and check it out. And the shop owner, did the shop owner like shut her down?
Well, he was kind of skeptical, I think. I don't think he like outright shoots her down. It's kind of just like, oh, all right, I guess, but I don't think it's going to work.
Yeah. And then immediately it's like, ding, 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 the bell on the door.
Look at
And the
that
guy's
interesting plant.
And notice your interesting plant in the window.
While I'm here, I'm going to buy $50 worth of roses.
Do you have change?
Do you have change for 100? No, then I'll just get $100. It's so funny. It's such a good scene.
That whole thing was
Yeah.
great. I really, really, really loved how this movie treated Audrey because she could very well have been coded as just idiot bimbo, blah, blah, blah. We've all been there. But they didn't. She had good ideas and they worked. And she was telling people things that needed to happen and that would work. And I'm sorry, y'all, when she was talking to Seymour towards like the middle-ish end of the movie, it was after her boyfriend had died.
Spoilers.
She told him, like, I'm a bad girl. I don't deserve a nice guy like you. I was like, oh, she was so good.
Yeah. She is a kind person. She is a sweet person. Yeah.
I felt like, other than the obvious, you know, she was getting smacked around stuff, which is horrible, but that's part of the, you know what, sometimes people get fucking smacked around. It's happening to everybody. It's happening to everybody. Not everybody, but you know what I mean? Like, it's a real thing that really happened.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're not bad people. They're not stupid people. They are intelligent, like she is. They are kind.
She does specify at some point that she believes she deserves it, essentially. Like that she doesn't deserve good things. Even if she dreams about things that, let's be honest, are very humble, but she doesn't think she deserves them.
She has a very precious dream. She wants to eat microwave TV dinners with Seymour. I keep on wanting to call him Stanley, and I don't know why. She wants to have microwave TV dinners with Seymour with their two junior little kids and their King Charles Spaniel.
In their tract house.
Yes. And
yeah, in suburbia.
What she wants is fucking nothing.
It makes me think about Family Guy, because they did a song with the pervert guy, thinking about A Life with Chris.
Oh, God. The Hey, Chris guy.
Yeah.
Fuck. Yes, no, I know exactly what you're talking about. He does sing that song to Chris. Oh, God. No.
That's terrible. I will say, though, it is interesting because the things she wants are clearly things she's seen on TV or in movies or in, magazines, right?
She wants the bare bones minimum ass American dream.
Here's the thing. The Americana that she wants doesn't technically exist, right? Like, it's things that were not real. Like Howdy Doody, well, not Howdy Doody, I guess that's not real. But like Leave It to Beaver or whatever, like those kinds of things, they're not real life. They've never been real life, right? Like,
Basil, I beg to differ. They are real life, but they come at a great cost.
they're not real life in that they are shiny and clean in a way that life is not. And never really has been for anybody. It may seem that way from the outside. Like, that's a whole thing you could talk about with social media, right? Like, things seem a certain way. In reality, though, they are not.
Are the quote-unquote ideal.
Yeah.
What she wants is like a really kind of trad wife style shit, and that comes at the trad wife cost. It ain't gonna be pretty for you, boo. I know in this movie it's supposed to be, because she's found the nice guy. She has found this fucking holy grail of nice dudes that is willing to kill for her. So in the movie it works, but for me in my reality, I'm watching her and I'm like, I can't imagine all the things that I wouldn't want to do, that I would have to do in order to maintain this fucking lifestyle that she's envisioning. You know what I mean? I'm talking as a queer person, so...
Queer coding stuff going on there.
Yeah.
But...
I'm like, she's gonna have to suck his dick every night. Oh,
God. There's two sides to the coin here, right? Like, the things she wants are fairly humble, right? Like, so when you think of any other musical in which a woman is like looking out a window and dreaming of what she wants, they're usually much bigger dreams, right? Like, so what she wants is considerably much more humble. But on that other side of the coin, because she doesn't know that world at all, like her world is so
shitty.
Yeah, and entrenched in the skid row of it all. What she has seen of it is not the reality of it. That's kind of like what you were saying. Like, there are downsides to it, but B, like, living a life like that is a lot of artifice, right?
She basically says, like, I'm gonna have a garbage disposal. And I'm like,
Yeah.
Bitch, when my garbage disposal breaks down, I call the police.
She wants very little. She wants a enormous 12-inch screen. She wants a garbage disposal. She wants an ironing machine. Like, these things are very humble things.
But at the same time, I will say, there are tons of folks that are living that Skid Row life, like, for real. And a garbage disposal is a fucking miracle. An ironing board, an iron, somebody to iron while you're at work.
Especially back then.
It's privilege. It's bare bones, basic ass privilege. It's asking for the bare minimum.
Something interesting, which I vaguely brought up earlier. It's not in the song part. You know how the song sort of starts of Somewhere That's Green, and then she's talking to our Greek chorus girls. She says somewhere nice, like Levittown or something like that. The thing about Levittown, so it is sort of considered like one of the first like bits of suburbia, right? Like the way we think of suburbia. However, she's telling 3 black women she wants to live in Levittown, which is infamous for pro-segregation policies and just racism in general. So it's like, it is interesting that which, in this case, like, maybe she doesn't know that. Maybe she only knows, like I said, she's seeing this artifice and saying like, oh, this is what I want. So it is very possible in that case that she doesn't know exactly what she's saying, but this place is not great for non-white people, right? So it is kind of an interesting thing for her to say, if that makes sense.
I'm going to stick with the belief that she is coming from a place of such ignorance and lack of exposure.
Yeah, like I said, I think a lot of her dreams are kind of, she does not know that they are artifice, if that makes sense, right? Like,
Sure.
she is a somewhat naive character, right?
Even the set design, when she's thinking about this and building this fantasy, the set design is very, very fake. It's intentionally fake. It's intentionally artificial. It looks cheesy and corny on purpose.
And ticky-tacky.
And ticky-tacky and cookie cutter and every other word we use to describe white suburbia.
Yeah, she specifically says tract houses, which are those cookie cutter, all look the same, in a suburban neighborhood kind of houses. You know what I mean?
Compared to what she has now, that's the goal. That's the dream. That's the fucking lie that is sold.
Which is why I don't really love the theatrical ending, but we can get to that later.
Okay. So I want to touch on all of the cameos. We touched on John Candy. Can we move to Steve Martin?
Sure. Unless anybody has anything else they want to say on Audrey and her dreams. I think it's such an interesting character. And I'll say because there is some blatantly obvious references to BDSM, with this character.
Handcuffs. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but not only that, he's like a little bit like a leather daddy, right? He's trade, right?
Yes, what? Yes, doctor. Doctor is his daddy.
Yeah, so it is kind of funny to have this film in the way that it is otherwise. Well, no, I was going to say otherwise pretty squeaky clean, but it is about a guy who murders people and feeds them to a plant. So maybe I should shut the hell up about that, but it is really interesting to have a character that is referencing that kind of thing that is really theoretically outside of the mainstream, right?
The dichotomy, Basil, that you just pointed out to me, the fucking dichotomy. We have this guy who is causing harm on the daily. He fucking loves it. He's made a career out of it. He has had a lifelong history. I fucking love causing people pain. Mm-hmm. And then we have someone who is pretty fucking pure. He was an orphan. He was adopted by a shopkeeper to basically be his employee. He gives him every other Sunday off. He's hopelessly in love and expounds upon how well he would treat this woman. Mm-hmm. But he feeds him to a fucking plant, doesn't he? He feeds him to a fucking plant with teeth.
I will say, what I find really interesting is that technically Seymour never actually kills anyone.
Correct.
He killed his fucking self.
Yep. And then Mr. Mushnick got eaten, right?
He walked into it.
He indirectly does things that do kill people theoretically, but he never actually kills them himself, which I do think is sort of interesting because if this is supposed to be your hero, maybe you don't want them, actually committing real murders, right?
What would happen if Seymour snapped?
Maybe nothing.
Maybe nothing? I don't know. I worry, and I say that in a looking forward to it way. I worry. I'm rubbing my hands together and twirling my handlebar mustache. I would love to see what happens when a character like that snaps, because he is already at a point where he's like, I'm going to bring a gun to the dentist office and I'm going to fucking kill this guy. The plant has convinced the devil character, the devil, we have Faust. A devil character, yes, that has convinced him, feed me a bad motherfucker. Yeah. Feed me somebody who deserves to die. This plant is in his head, okay?
Yeah.
And he takes the bait and he goes and he gets
we have to talk about Audrey. Yeah, Audrey too.
We want to talk about the plant.
Well, let's finish up with the dentist stuff.
It's going to be a while.
Yeah.
Because the dentist is intertwined with another one of my favorite characters.
Bill Murray's character, the masochist. Yep.
I'm going to let somebody else go. I'm going to shut my damn mouth.
I will say I find it interesting, right, that when Oren, who's the dentist, experiences somebody who doesn't dislike the pain he's inflicting, he's instantly turned off.
Because it's all about making someone miserable, isn't
Right.
it?
Yeah. Because it is beyond just the kind of consensual BDSM that, people engage in. It is way beyond that, right? Like it is into something that is something else, right?
We have to go back. For people who have not seen this movie, Bill Murray, and this scene, I will say, is completely, you could delete it and it would have no fucking effect on the movie. But
it's so funny. It's so good.
So good. It was like 10 minutes of the most fucked up shit I've ever seen. Bill Murray plays this fucking sex pest. Now, doesn't he? He's showing up at the dentist, the masochistic dentist. Is it masochistic? No, the sadistic dentist. Yeah. And he's like, oh, yeah, like, daddy hurt me. First of all, he's talking nonstop like a radio. He's like, oh, yeah, I went to this other dentist, and basically they weren't rough enough to me. He doesn't say that, but you can tell dude is fucking into this.
He's real into it. Yeah, yeah.
He's shoving the cotton gauze into his own mouth. He's turning the fucking overhead lamps on himself. He bitch knows the routine.
My favorite part is when he knocks his head into the lamp because Oren picks up really nasty looking, and he's like, oh, and like faints into the fucking thing. It's so good. It is such a good performance.
There is no question. Bro is wanting it. It's amazing. And what's the name of the dentist? Oren?
Yeah.
Oren is like he's not clocking it. He's not clocking it for a long time. He's not, then the guy is in there going like, oh, yeah, oh, I'm going to get a candy bar. He is like nutting hardcore. And I don't remember what happens, but finally Oren
he kicks him out. He's just like, get the fuck out, you creep.
Oh my God.
You know that a lot of that was improvised, actually. Like a lot of what he was saying for continuity. It's part of why when he's saying things, you can see it in the waiting room or you're not seeing his face because like he just did so much improv with it. I guess they had a bit of trouble like cutting it together. My favorite is when you go out to Seymour and he's waiting and he's like, what the fuck is happening in there? And Bill Murray is going, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So fucking good. Yeah.
I'm gonna get a candy bar.
Like, the movie is intentionally funny in lots of other ways. It's just, this is like a concentration of something that is so over the top.
Completely unnecessary.
Yeah.
Like, you did not have to have this Bill Murray character at all.
Yeah.
But it was gold.
So I think beyond like the actual humor and the whole thing that Bill Murray's doing, having the character, I think there is something to be said about it because it does, like I said, it gives you some insight into the character of Oren that causing pain thing is beyond just sexual pleasure, right?
You need to actually see the feeling of misery.
Yes, exactly.
Right. It's like when you like it, I stop liking it.
Exactly, yeah. I do think in that sense that is, not that it's like necessary, but I do think that it does bring something to this character where you might have been able to figure it out a little bit before then, but like now it is very clear. Like this is not something going on with Audrey that maybe is going too far and you know what I'm saying? Like sexually, but this is something that he is purposefully doing, that he loves this misery. The part he enjoys is actually how horrible it is for other people.
How unpleasurable it is for the other person.
I also think it was really interesting in the scene where he meets Seymour with Audrey. He is actually pretty nice for the most part, or like pleasant to Seymour, while at the exact same time being terribly cruel to Audrey. You know what I mean? Like he's treating this stranger better than the girl he's seeing. Yes. Like it's insane.
He says to Seymour, like, oh, you got to train him right or something like that. After he yells at Audrey, he looks at Seymour and says, you got to train him right.
Mm-hmm. Also, with the dentist, it is very funny when he's like, I think it was when Seymour is like, your teeth could look like this. And he like turns on not a projector, like light box. It's a fucking dog's mouth or something. Like, it is an animal. It is so funny.
your teeth gonna look like this. And then he gets all fucked up and he forgets and he looks at it and he's like, that whole, oh my God. It was amazing. This movie's amazing.
Interestingly, from what I can tell from pictures I've seen and the one, video I've seen of live plays, the mask that's normally used for the nitrous oxide is like more like you can still see the full face, but it covers the edges of the face and it is lit inside so you can still see the actor's face, but it also like distorts the actor's face to be bigger. So it is like a vastly different machine in the film to what it is normally in the stage play, which I do think is sort of interesting. And I wonder if it is because Steve Martin at this point was pretty famous. And I wonder if that's part of why they wanted to see his face more clearly or something. Did you want to talk about Audrey too? If there's nothing else you want to touch on with Rough Trade Orin?
Yeah, let's talk about Tui.
The puppets for Tui are incredible.
Fuck.
They're so good.
Fuck.
It is Jim Henson, but it's, I think, better than some of the other stuff. Like, I think this is probably their company's best work.
It's better than any goddamn Marvel movie I've seen in the past 10 years.
Oh,
there,
damn.
I said it.
But it's not just the puppetry and the kind of movement, which I do really like, especially in the larger Tui puppets where the lips are so
Articulate.
like flexible and articulated. But the design is also really good. Like the veining on the top. There's a part, I believe it was like the third puppet or something. It's not the last version, but the like second to last or something like that, where it opens its mouth and its uvula looks like an orchid.
Orchid.
It's beautiful. It is done so well. It is painted so well. It moves. I'm not saying just the one because there's obviously multiple stages. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But so good. I love it.
How did they make that thing's mouth look so good? There's no way that a computer was involved.
No.
In 1986?
Yeah. No, it is all practical effect. I thought there might be animatronic, but when I looked it up, it said just puppetry. Like the way the lips move, but the painting on it with like the veining and the subtle changes and the color changes. And it's wet sometimes.
It's
like
wet.
the lips are like wet.
Bitch is wet.
So good.
This is a good movie.
It would be a really hard for me to find because I'm sure it doesn't even actually exist anymore. But there used to be a blog where, so like community theaters and stuff like have to buy the rights for plays, but they also then have to make their own Audrey 2 puppet if they do Little Shop of Horrors. And it was this blog where it collected disastrous photos or like very silly or just not good versions of Audrey 2 that community theaters had put as their Audrey 2 because they have limited resources.
Kind of like Community Shrek.
Yeah.
Community Shrek?
Yeah. Okay. I heard this on Mabim Bam.
My brother and me for the uninitiated.
Thank you. Google Community Shrek and you will see some of the most god-awful images that you've ever seen in your life. Like some of the most ridiculous Shrek costumes. Like tragic. Absolutely tragic.
Yeah, that's the thing. It is them trying their best. I get that. But it is very funny sometimes when they're not successful, I guess.
But she was, for the purposes of this movie, absolutely amazing. And she was made even more amazing by the vocal work of Levi Stubbs.
Yes, of the Four Tops.
Right. Wow. 1936 to 2008.
They did Sugar Pie Honey Bunch. You know that I love you. Can't help but. Yeah, that is such a good song. I love that song.
Such a great voice.
Oh, yeah. Great.
I get really hung up on voice acting. When they switch, when a character in an animated series gets their voice actor switched, I get unhinged. So I could tell, and maybe I'm wrong, but it felt like to my ears that Levi was recording his lines completely separate from everybody else. That is my teeny tiny, teeny, eensy weensy little nitpick.
I mean, that is most likely because he couldn't be on set.
Yeah, there's no way around it in most movies.
Yeah, everything is ADR, yeah.
Yeah, Adventure Time. I will applaud Adventure Time because I have read that they are basically sitting around in a fucking circle reading their lines together while they record. There's a lot
to love about Adventure Time. Sorry.
Girl, we could do a whole episode on Adventure Time. But I could tell that Levi was basically being fed reactionary lines by somebody, like some stagehand. Not stagehand, but
Not one of the actors.
Yeah. And he was reacting to them. Still so good. When he says, God, what does he say? He's asking Seymour to feed him more. And Seymour's like, I'm going to go get you some beef. Like, I'm going to go to the store and I'm going to get you some steak. And she goes, don't do me any favors. I was like,
Good comeback.
This thing has such attitude. When she flops over during the whole TV interview thing where Seymour sees her at the shop after having eaten the dentist, and he's like, oh my God. Because she's huge now, right? She's huge and beautiful. Every time she gets a little of that red shit, she evolves. Growlithe becomes Arcanine.
Bellsprout evolves into Weeping Bell.
And she flops over. She flops over during that TV interview, like just dead. She's like, ugh, I'm dead.
In front of everybody, like a little bitch.
That is some 4-year-old shit right there. That's like, I need you to perform. I need you to do this. I need you to act a certain way. And they're like, I just shit my pants and threw my shoes down the stairs.
A slight defense of Audrey, too. If you're hungry, right? Like,
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't really matter when you're hungry. Like, that's just the way your body works. When you're hungry, right?
And it's amazing the way that she manipulates him. She has his number from the fucking beginning. She's like, feed me blood. And he's like, no. And she's like, feed me flesh. And he's like, no. And she's like, I see you're having some reservations. Feed me flesh of a really bad dude that you hate. Like, she gets in his head immediately. And it's great. The one other nitpick that I have with this movie is that towards the end, she dials up in what is kind of a cheesy, corny, to me, scene where she uses her vines to use a payphone to call Audrey, the human being. And she's like, get on over here, bitch. And Audrey does, because she's precious. And in that moment, I was like, why would you do this? You're so smart, obviously. You're so manipulative. Like, this is the only person that's really working for you. Why would you?
I think it's meant to be a punishment, essentially.
Ah, okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, because basically Seymour has been refusing, right?
Yeah, he's like, I'll give you beef.
And Chewie's like, you know what? Fuck off. You're not going to do it for me. I can give you things. I've been giving you things. But on the other hand, I can take things away from you, too.
Ooh. Okay.
Yeah. Because their relationship is obviously not a good one, right? Like,
the Chewie giveth, the Chewie taketh away.
Chewie taketh away.
Yeah, it's true.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah. There's so much to like about it. Sorry, I know I'm like a visual person, so that's like part of it. There's just so much to love about the design of the puppet. I particularly love when it starts stomping, like the planter, like pushing itself up and stomping along with the song it's singing. So good. So perfect. I love it. 2-year thing about the payphone. I think in the play she just sort of happens to be in the store. I may be recalling that incorrectly, but I think she just happens to like go to the store or something.
That would have worked a little bit better for me.
Because that's the place she works.
I think it was supposed to be cool. Like, they did that and they were like, oh, people are going to think this is cool. And maybe in 1986 they did. I mean, we're talking like Howard the Duck era, where everyone thought that shit was passable and cool. But for me, present day, it's just one of those things where I'm like, I don't hate it, but It's a little cheesy looking. It's, I don't know, it's a little bit cornball. It's forgivable, but...
I mean, the whole movie's a little cornball, but I get where you're coming from. For you, this is sort of like, this is the line where it gets like a little beyond ridiculous. Yeah.
It gets super tongue-in-cheek at that point.
Yeah.
Again, fine, fully forgivable for this movie. Did not break my immersion for one moment. I was just sort of like, okay. But wow, the practical effects in this movie were so...
Incredible. Wonderful. Good.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. Perfect. Better than anything I've seen modern style.
Okay. Anything.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
You got a little too specific last time.
Oh, Drew's offended by what you said about Marvel. I'm joking.
Well, okay. The human eye is very, very good at sussing out what's a computer and what's not.
Sometimes.
That's why I had trouble. I was like, is there some sort of CGI element to this? No, there's no way. Computers filled entire rooms in 1986. There's no fucking way. But damn, it was believable. Like, I believed that thing was real. Even when I watched it earlier today, I was like, that thing is real. It's alive.
I do have one question, though. When Audrey 2 calls Audrey 1 and when Audrey 2 speaks about people, there's some implication that Audrey 2 can see, but it has no eye. So how the fuck does Audrey see?
Pheromones.
Okay.
Audrey 1 is across the street when Audrey 2 is waving at her. So pheromones wouldn't work in that case because they're in two separate buildings.
Oh, I just said a thing.
I just like to pick apart how things work. I know it doesn't matter.
You know what?
It's a fucking alien.
Right.
The chorus girls were getting rained on, but they didn't get wet, did they?
Do y'all want to talk about the endings? Multiple.
So, Basil.
Yeah.
You have seen, and I'm super jealous because I couldn't find it. You've seen an ending that I have not. And Drew, I'm assuming you have not either. There's an alternate ending to this movie.
I might have seen it.
It's fucked up.
It's technically the original ending. So when they filmed the whole movie, when they went to test it, people didn't like it because it's not exactly a hopeful movie, right?
Yeah.
With this ending, which we will talk about in a second. So if you've seen the movie, you most likely have seen the good, well, quote unquote good, because it's still not exactly great, but the one where they get married and go and live in the suburbs. And then there's like a little Audrey 2 in their garden, right? You've seen that one. Is that correct?
Audrey 4. Yep. And Audrey 2 cubed.
Sorry, what'd you say, Drew?
Sources for watching the movie are probably, because I have not seen that version.
The marriage suburb one?
Yeah, I have not seen that.
Oh, okay.
What?
So that, that's funny. I had never seen until this watching the original bad ending.
Stop. Drew.
Yeah.
What ending have you seen?
What am I supposed to talk about?
Where...
Do we take over the world?
The fucking kaiju ending?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, so, okay, let me just explain the two endings. So the first ending, during Mean Green Mother from Outer Space, there's a little bit beforehand, but we'll talk about that in a second. Seymour electrocutes Audrey 2, kills her, right? And then Seymour and Audrey run away together. Well, they run away, they get married, they live in that suburban dream that Audrey had.
Fantasy life.
And then it pans down into their garden, and there's a little Tui, just like the first...
Cute, baby. Oh, you go cute.
Yeah, like the first Tui. In the original ending, and also the reason this was the original ending is because it is the play's ending. When Audrey gets not eaten, but in Audrey 2's mouth, when Audrey 2 is trying to eat Audrey 1, when Seymour goes to save her, he does not. He does save her in terms of he brings her out of the plant, brings her out of the plant.
But she did.
But she's dying instead of when he saves her in the theatrical ending. And Interestingly, there's a different song as well. So what happens is there is a Suddenly Seymour reprise in the theatrical ending, and instead there's a Somewhere That's Green reprise in the Audrey Dies. It is incredibly sad and made me cry.
Oh, God.
Because essentially what she sings to Seymour is, I love you so much that I want you to continue on and have everything you want. And if that means keeping Audrey 2 alive because he admits in both versions that he's been killing people, or he's been feeding the plant people. And she says, when I die, which will be soon, feed me to the plant because then I will be somewhere green and you can take care of me and we'll technically still be together. And it made me sob. And then he does it because she asked him to. So she dies and he feeds her. And then Mean Green Mother happens, but Seymour does not electrocute Audrey 2. And I'm trying to remember now because it's been a little bit since I actually watched the film. But basically, he gets eaten by Audrey as well. I know in the play, he specifically goes in there to try and kill her. I can't remember if that happens in the film. And then there's a guy that's like trying to take cuttings and sell them, which happens again in both versions. Yep. The guy who was doing it, their company does. They take cuttings, they sell Audrey 2s, and then there's a song with the Greek chorus about how, or it might just be narration, again, I cannot remember, where they say a bunch of people got the Audrey 2s and something similar to what you just watched happens to everybody. And then there's this whole scene of them taking over the world and they're like kaijus going through the city and destroying it.
Alien invasion is complete.
Yeah, and the very last scene, there's a giant Audrey 2 on top of the Statue of Liberty's head.
I, for one, welcome our giant plant overlord.
But yeah, that's the original ending. But people, when it was test screened, didn't like it because there was no hope, which I think the problem is it is meant to be a cautionary tale. So it's not supposed to have hope at the end. You know what I mean?
It's sick to me. And Basil, you told me about this ending yesterday?
Yes. It was yesterday.
You told me about this ending before I watched the movie for the purposes of the podcast. And I've seen this movie 4 billion times, never heard of this. But I was fucking intrigued. And I happened to pick the first version of the full-length movie that I could watch. And it was not that one.
Yeah.
But I will say, it hurt me when human Audrey was singing the Somewhere That's Green song. Having known what you told me and hearing her song, the Somewhere That's Green part hits real awful. It did hit real dirty. I'm like, yeah, she's going to go somewhere that's green, all right.
Unfortunately, not the way she would like, yeah.
Yeah, and I like that kind of thing. Like, people are so, I never nowadays. And I'm sorry, I like that sort of dirty, filthy, painful kind of thing. I know how to separate myself from fiction. So I want to see this version. Like, I'm probably going to continue to hunt for this gross ending version because I want it. Give it to me.
You just have to watch the director's cut. So that is the only one that has the original sad ending, I guess. I can see, because I do enjoy hope in a lot of film. I don't know that I like it that much in this one, though. You know what I mean? And the thing is, they did get around it a little bit, too. Because technically, it has this hope they're together, whatever. But they were able to put a little sneaky, like,
what if?
No, Audrey 2 is not actually gone for good.
I almost didn't want to talk about this movie. I didn't want to have this movie be on the podcast because it seems like a lot of our movies that we talk about, they end up getting remakes. I swear to Jesus Christ in heaven, if anyone dares to touch this movie, don't do it. Don't.
I mean, there has been an off-Broadway revival since like 2019 or something.
That's fine. I'm just saying, like, blah, blah, blah studios, keep your fucking hands off this movie. It's fine. It's perfect the way it is.
I worry that today's sensibilities in terms of like film would not accept the kind of campy, kitschy stuff and try to make it.
That's a them problem.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. Like, I agree with you.
There's nothing to worry about because no one's going to make that movie today.
Fair enough.
Drew?
No one's going to touch it.
Promise?
Well, hold on.
You pinky promise?
I believe Drew is correct because there's kind of an underlying anti-capitalist message in
Yes,
Little
there
Shop of
is.
Horrors as well. And so I think that might be a hard sell. I mean, not that there are no films that ever have that, but that is one thing it has going against it. The other thing is it's really weird. Like, it is kind of a weird thing, right? That's another kind of strike against it. But what it has for people actually redoing it would be the nostalgia of it, right?
It would be like, oh my god, like the plant talks and it eats people, like that kind of thing. Or like, oh my god, she's a woman and she's getting beaten, but she's still like a valuable character.
Well, it's more that people would be like, Orange shouldn't exist because he sucks. And it's like, there's a reason. He's the villain. Like, he's a villain in the film.
Basil, you are so on point with that. Like, this is an anti-TikTok movie.
Mm-hmm.
This is a...
I love TikTok, by the way, but... But that's the thing. Drew said, yeah, it's probably not going to be touched. And I agree, because there's a lot going against it for
Good.
anybody wanting to redo it, I think. Outside of, I think musical theater is musical theater is a lot more diverse most of the time. It's not even that diverse. But, like, women are directors a lot of the time. And...
Yeah, leave it alone, everyone. I pray, please, keep your fucking filthy, grubby paws off of it.
I will say now, with the revival, there have been a lot of casting decisions where they are people who are famous, or at least somewhat famous outside of necessarily like theater sometimes, but are recognizable. I've noticed there's like a lot of, I wouldn't call it stunt casting necessarily, because a lot of the people are not like hugely famous, but they are people that have found success on television. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's been happening a lot, I've noticed. Like, the current Orpheus in Hades Town is, I forget his name, Jordan something. And the Audrey is currently Sarah Hyland, who, if you don't know, is Haley from Modern Family. And then the Seymour is currently Andrew Barth Feldman, who was mostly did theater, but has recently did that movie with Jennifer Lawrence, where she takes like a young boy's virginity. It's weird. And Sarah Hyland is Audrey. Also, Jinx Monsoon was Audrey at one point, which was kind of...
What?
Yeah. So, yeah, what do you guys think? Yestalgia, nostalgia? I think we kind of know what everyone says, but let's go ahead.
That's Yestalgia for me.
Yep.
Awesome music. Two is a good character. I mean, they're all good characters. Seymour's a great character. Yeah, I like this movie. And it's kind of a twist, I feel, that I saw the director's cut and not the theatrical.
I hate you both.
Sorry.
I haven't seen it and I want to so bad.
Having seen the director's cut, I think I would have liked the theatrical version less.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you've seen that one first, or like only, then yeah, definitely. I don't think. I was a little surprised because I didn't realize it was the director's cut until stuff started being different. And I was like, oh, damn. Okay, cool.
Yeah. I would be thrown.
Do you want to go, Amanda?
Absolute Yestalgia. I can't even, it's hard to talk about because it's so fucking good and amazing. And you know what? That's it. That's all I got.
Okay. Yeah. Big, hard. Nope. Didn't mean to say it like that.
Phrasing.
It is a solid nostalgia for me. Unintentionally sexual, I don't care. Yeah, I love this film. I love the play. I think it is incredible and perfect in so many ways, or at least as close to perfect as you can get for something like this.
Big, giant, robbing. Yeah.
And even though it has slid into number 2, it is, in terms of a musical, it's still, it's still top 3. And I don't think it'll ever fall past top 3. So, yeah. Yestalgia.
Yeah, this is in like my top 5. Like, wow, of all time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe top 5 too.
Really?
As far as musicals.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. It's a really good musical.
You like that many musicals.
Great.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. All right. So that has been Yestalgia. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hilarious.
On guard, bitch.